Bitcoin is the only asset that truly matters, and in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. I came across this post from my friend Chris Johnson at the Wealth Squad, and it says here XRP is a distraction, BNB, ETH, Sol, AVAX, Meta, Google, Apple, Microsoft, S&P 500, and rental properties. They're all distractions. The only asset that really matters is Bitcoin, and 99% of people can't grasp this concept. Most people think that real estate, stocks, bonds, all these cryptocurrencies, all these other assets, whatever they are, the goal is to use them to accumulate more dollars, to get as many dollars as possible, and to use those dollars to sustain your lifestyle. I think that's where most people fall behind. And the reason for that is because the dollar is fake money. Your goal shouldn't be to accumulate dollars. Your goal should be to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. The reality is, when you take Bitcoin out of the crypto industry, you're left with a huge pile of human feces. And we can see that here. I thought this was a pretty funny way to just explain what I wanted to get across, but all these assets are just a way to get more dollars. You can't use them as money. We use dollars as a form of money. So we use it as a store of value, medium of exchange, and a unit of account. The goal is really for everybody in the current financial system. I like to call it the legacy financial system because I feel like I can see the world on a Bitcoin standard. But in the legacy financial system, the goal is to use all of these assets, these things that we call assets, to extract as many dollars out of everybody else as possible. For example, these mega corporations that I'm referring to, do you think that they would survive if they had to pay a living wage? Probably not. These governments, do you think that they would survive if they couldn't create dollars, euros, yen out of thin air? Probably not. Real estate investors, do you think that they would survive if they didn't get all of the tax benefits that they get in the current financial system? Again, probably not. Cryptocurrencies, I don't think most of these would survive at all. I think the majority of them would fall apart if people became more financially literate and if they actually put in the time to understand what Bitcoin is. So in this system, the goal is to trade everything for dollars, to accumulate as many dollars as possible. The way that I see it, Bitcoin isn't a way to get more dollars. Bitcoin is the exit plan. So what you want to do is you want to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, and you want to give away your dollars to do that. And the people who understand how Bitcoin works are the ones who are going to accumulate the most Bitcoin. Their Bitcoin denominated net worth is going to continue to increase because they're going to offer goods and services in exchange for Bitcoin, and they're not going to sell their Bitcoin eventually for dollars. Bitcoin's market has a great way of shaking out anyone who's buying Bitcoin based on borrowed conviction. What happens is the people who don't quite understand how Bitcoin works buy it, and then when they see a dip, they sell everything they have. Instead of zooming out, they focus on these day-to-day movements. And what they do is they give away their Bitcoin because they get worried that the dollar value of that Bitcoin is going to decrease. But let's think of this logically. The dollar is literal pieces of paper. It can be created out of nothing. And today, there aren't even papers involved. You can create dollars on a computer and you can distribute them to anyone in the world. The people trading Bitcoin on borrowed conviction, and what I mean by that is people who are buying Bitcoin based on just news reports and headlines saying that Bitcoin's price is rising. They don't actually understand what it is. The people who buy Bitcoin based on borrowed conviction are having a really difficult time right now because the price was supposed to keep going up. We were supposed to see 200, 300, 400K by the end of December 2024. So what's happening right now is instead of holding on, because they don't quite understand what Bitcoin is, they're giving away their Bitcoin to the people who understand what it is. If we take a look at this graphic, we can see that the majority of Bitcoin is held by individuals. We can see that businesses, funds, and governments don't have that much Bitcoin, meaning that they don't have that much power because money is power. Money gives you the ability to do what you want and to even control other people. You can pay them with money to do the things that you don't want to do, and you can buy back your time. So, the way that I see it, a lot of people who own Bitcoin today are only owning it because they want more dollars. They don't care about Bitcoin. They got lucky. They bought early. All they want is the dollar value to go up so that they can use those dollars to buy whatever they want in their day to day life. I don't think most people understand that institutions are coming after your Bitcoin and they're going to use your lack of financial literacy and your misunderstanding of how Bitcoin works to their advantage. They're going to take away the best asset in the world from you and they're going to give you pieces of paper. This comes back to the concept that Bitcoin runs out at every single price. No matter what happens, at every single price, we're going to run out of Bitcoin supply. So let's say, for example, right now, Bitcoin is $95,000. At some point in the future, we're going to look back and wonder, why didn't we buy more Bitcoin at $95,000? Bitcoin will be $1 million, $10 million, $20 million, $50 million. We're going to see a melt up in Bitcoin's price because all of these institutions aren't going to have enough Bitcoin. They're going to want to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. And the only way to do this is to get these people to sell. Now let's go back to this post here. Everything on this list is a distraction. It's just a way to take your Bitcoin from you, to get you to believe that all of these things will give you cash flow, they'll outperform Bitcoin, they'll give you tax benefits, so that you give away your Bitcoin and buy as many of these things as possible. You have to remember that all of the people who own these legacy assets like Meta, Google, Apple, Microsoft, S&P 500, and rental properties own zero Bitcoin. They're looking at Bitcoin's performance and they're shocked. They're thinking, how do I get my hands on some of this? All of my money is tied into all of these other distractions. Once you truly understand why Bitcoin is so powerful and what makes it so valuable, you're not going to want any of those other assets because everything else is going to underperform against Bitcoin forever. If we take a look at Bitcoin's price in terms of US dollars, we can see that the US dollar is constantly losing value and it'll continue to lose value forever. For example, we can see that one US dollar bought 40 million Satoshis or 0.4 Bitcoin on October 17th, 2011. Today, $1 only buys 1,035 Satoshis. If we take a look at this chart on a linear scale, we can see that it doesn't even really work because the numbers back here are so much bigger than the ones out here. That chart was the inverse of this one here. So we can see here that this one is Bitcoin's price in terms of US dollars. The other one was the US dollars price in terms of Bitcoin. When we zoom into this period from August 2011 to March 2017, it seems like Bitcoin is extremely volatile. It seems like the price keeps going up and it keeps coming down, keeps going up, keeps coming down. But now we know for a fact that the highs of November 2013 are the daily moves of today. We see $1,000 movements every hour, every few minutes in Bitcoin's price because the price has grown so much. All of these prices from the past are irrelevant. Every single price is going to seem like a rounding error. Today, we see Bitcoin's price at almost $100,000. At some point in the future, we're going to see $100,000 daily moves. Today, we see that Bitcoin is worth $95,412. At some point in the future, we're going to see daily moves of $95,000. Then we're going to see hourly moves of $95,000 because the price is going to go so much higher than where it is today. What I think is going to happen over the next few years is the value from all of these other assets or other things that are in the economy is going to funnel into Bitcoin. And we're going to see that everything else is going to continue getting cheaper and cheaper in terms of Bitcoin. We can see that house prices have dropped significantly over the last few years in terms of Bitcoin. We can see that most altcoins have completely underperformed against Bitcoin. We can see that most stocks have underperformed against Bitcoin, and we can see that bonds, of course, have underperformed against Bitcoin. What's happening here is that a lot of people are still ignoring Bitcoin. They're still holding on to these assets, thinking that Eventually, they're going to make a recovery. There's going to be some kind of mean reversion. We're going to go back to whatever the mean was in the past. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that the value that these assets have lost in terms of Bitcoin is never going to be recovered. It's never going to come back. The funnel isn't going to go the opposite way. What I think is going to happen over the next few decades is Bitcoin is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as it extracts value from real estate, from stocks, from gold, from every other asset in the world. And Bitcoin is going to be the only thing that everybody is going to want. Nobody is going to want fiat currencies because why would they want pieces of paper that can be printed out of thin air in exchange for their goods, services, all the effort that they put in to create things? At some point, nobody is going to want to sell their Bitcoin for dollars. So don't get distracted by all of these other assets. Don't give away your Bitcoin. Study Bitcoin and actually understand what it is. Don't borrow your conviction because everybody is coming for your Bitcoin. Everybody who owns all of these assets is eventually going to want your Bitcoin, and they're going to be willing to give you whatever you want, any amount of dollars, in order to get you to give away your Bitcoin.